Hello, Eva. You there, Eva?
Yep, how you doing?
Good. Hey, how are you?
Busy. I'm all right.
Welcome to CANA.
Thank you. So my camera's not working. I hope that's okay.
That's all right. That's all right. Thanks for coming. It's going to be a busy night. I better start taking attendance.
Oh Lord.
We are live on the air.
Okay. Hi everybody.
Let's go start. How's things down at City Hall?
They're going well. This is busy. You know, all kind of stuff is happening. I took some time off, but I had to make sure I made this meeting. So after this, I'll be back in like 2 weeks.
We got some folks joining us. Hi, Dan. Just gotta unmute yourself there, Dan. Hi, Dan.
Did you have a nice summer?
Yes. How was yours?
Oh, it could have been better. It was too much rain.
Yeah.
You know, the place we always go to in Sacandaga, unfortunately, the guy who owned the place died, and we can't go there anymore. So it's kind of a disappointment.
That's too bad.
But what can I say? You know, got some work done instead, which was good.
Gordon.
Hey,
Good to
Zach.
see you, sir. Good to see you.
Sorry for this epically bad lighting. It's not my fault. It's the State University's fault.
Actually, I'm going to be right back, everybody. I'm just going to grab something to drink.
Good idea.
Hey, Christine. So, Jordan, has your phone been lighting up since
Oh, why?
A couple nights ago?
Oh man, I'll tell you, you know who is like, and I think he's going to join us. But I don't know if you know Luke Rumsey from Albany.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So he is on the ground with APD pretty much every weekend, and he sort of oversees our off-campus student services, off-campus conduct. So he's going to join us too. But yeah, he's been in the thick of it for sure, more so than me. But
I mean, do we need more trampolines in the city for people to use?
oh man, I would love to know who that person was. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Hey, Gene, you just got to unmute yourself, Mr. Solon. And Gene, if you're on a cell phone, *6 to unmute yourself. But you got to hit the little button in the lower left-hand corner. It's like a little red picture with a slash, with a / through it, Gene. So you got to look at your buttons. Hey, Dan, what's the latest on Lincoln Park? The pool?
Oh, on the pool, or, I mean, there's a lot about Lincoln Park. You can take your pick here.
Yeah.
Well, the pool is still open. Well, I think it's open through Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
Part of it is, right?
Yeah, it's down to like 1/4, I understand. But they keep it open until right after Labor Day.
I'm filling up now. Hi, Esther. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Hi. Good
Glad to
see
be
you.
here. Thought we would be able to be in person, but no such luck.
I'm going to just say a couple words at the beginning of the meeting about that. Officer Sturriali, good to see you again.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Good. Long time no see.
I know.
Good to have Louise McNeely, Holly Katz. Good to see you both. Welcome back.
See you.
Thanks for keeping me on your emails, Louise. They're phenomenal. You definitely get a lowdown of everything going on in the city. Looks like Andrew Needhart's having an issue getting into the meeting. Wonder if he's having connection issues. Deb Zamer, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hang in there. Good to see you.
You too.
Okay, let's see here. I've got Officer Webster. Okay. Okay, there's Andrew Needhart. Hi, Andrew. Officer Dan Webster. We have Ed Brennan with the Norman School coming on. All right. Good. We're filling up. We're filling up quick. I like to see that. Hi, Ed. How are you? Hi, Andrew.
Good.
Needhart.
How you doing?
See you. Andrew Needhart. Andrew, you there? For some reason, his little microphone's not showing up.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Good. Officer Peterson, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Zach, did you send a meeting agenda to us?
Did. Okay, folks, we're going to get started if that's okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back from the summer. This is the September 1st, 2021 Council of Albany Neighborhood Associations meeting. I'm your chair, Zach Simpson. Just want to welcome us CANA members back. It was a quick 3 months, wasn't it, huh? But I'm glad to see that we're back together again virtually. Oops, if you want to just mute yourself, folks, if you're not speaking, that'd be great. And I just wanted to mention that when I left things off back in June, there was some hope of having some level of in-person meetings again. And since the Delta variant has surged, we are going to stay virtual for a little more time, okay? So I just want to put that out there. I know I've got a lot of questions about when we're going to be back in person, but I'm not going to risk anybody's safety to do that. So we're going to stay virtual, we're going to stay active, and we're going to stay ready to roll, okay? So first, I just want to turn things over to the Albany Police Department to give us a few updates. We'll first start with Officer Peterson, whenever you're ready, sir, about the new recruit community liaison program.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate you giving me some time for this. So if anyone was watching the news recently, W10 ran a story, very brief story about a program we're looking to launch here in the academy. Basically, it's the Albany Police Community Liaison Partnership. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to assign recruits liaisons within the community to do a tour of every ward of the city, 1 day a week. So the recruits will actually do a rotation and they will team up with a community member and tour every ward in the city throughout their time in the academy. And our goal here is to develop a relationship between the brand new police officers that haven't even hit the street yet and the community members. This came about through conversations at another community program that we have, Time to Talk Cops Community Collaborative. And it was one of the ideas that a community member brought up in order to just create a better networking relationship between community members and police officers. We're seeing a little bit of a divide, generationally and also with just the way things are with, the culture of police and urban environments right now. So we're going to launch this for our next academy, either in October or November. We don't have a launch date yet for that class, but we're really excited about it. And I appreciate Zach letting me get on here. And I'm pretty much going to solicit some volunteers from this pool of people right here, because I know everyone is pretty well invested in their neighborhoods. So I'll leave my contact info in the chat box. And if anyone's interested in volunteering, feel free to reach out to me. We're teaming up with ACPAC. They're going to be the coordinators for the volunteers based on the way they're already defined. They have representatives from every ward appointed by the Common Council. So ACPAC's involved. April Bacon, if anyone's familiar with her, she's a huge community leader. She's a driving force behind this, but I appreciate the time. And anyone interested, please feel free to reach out to me.
Great. And once it's ready to roll, Officer Peterson, I can send it out on our listserv to solicit volunteers.
That'd be awesome. I appreciate that.
We also have Officer Dan Webster, Officer Kevin Singh, and Officer Sal Storiali. Do you gentlemen have any updates as well?
Well, yes, we had a busy summer since last we spoke. I went through some of the statistics and stuff, and we're about on par with last year with violent crimes and shootings and that. But right now, I think our biggest concern is the shootings and the Pine Hills parties is something we're working on. It's been a very difficult process so far this year, but I guess some coming out of COVID, some of that was expected. One of the things statistically that has changed since last we met is burglaries are going up. No specific area, just I believe that people are now going back to work, and throughout the summer, people have been going back to work. So most burglaries happen during the day when people are at work. So they were way down throughout the 2020. So now they're starting to come back up a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind if you leave the house, and make sure your door is locked, windows locked, that kind of stuff. Other than that, I don't know if Kevin or Sal have anything to add.
Dan pretty much touched on
everything that, you know, of importance. I'm the neighborhood beat officer for West Hill, Upper Central Avenue. Just to touch on some of the things that are going on over in that area that also affects the entire city. There have been an increase in package thefts. So please, you know, when you are getting a package delivered to your home, try and be home when it's getting delivered, or have it delivered in one of those secure compartments if you have one. Also, vehicle larcenies are increasing. And as far as panhandling is concerned, it's diminished a little bit in the area of Everett Road and Central Avenue. We have those large construction signs up that encourage people to donate to charities rather than panhandlers. Just, you know, if you do talk to your neighbors or anything like that, let them know, you know, to donate to charity rather than the panhandlers. Because that's why they remain where they are. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Dan Quinn.
Hi, I'm the new pastor of Blessed Sacrament Church here on Central Ave, near Waterville and Everett, and the St. Patrick's on Lake and Central. Those panhandlers. The rumor that I heard, and I've only been here a few months, so I'm new. I'm sorry. The rumor that I heard was that people like pimp them. Like people drop them off, they make money, and then the people put them up for the hotel for the night, and then they take 70% of what those guys get by panhandling. That's a rumor that I heard. I don't know if it's true or not.
So that could be rumor. It could also be true. We really don't know what they do with the money. Okay. But it's my understanding that it's all individuals. They do work as teams sometimes, and kind of, you know, split the money at the end of the day. But you know,
it's not an organized like.
Yeah, it's usually the same. It's usually the same group of 10 panhandlers you see in the area.
Yeah, I see them all the time.
My thing is we have to encourage people to donate to the proper charities instead of the panhandlers, because we're doing them a disservice by giving them money on the street.
Yeah, and we have one of the food pantries in the neighborhood, so they're more than welcome to come to our food pantry, but there's a system for that, you know.
Yes.
So, thank you.
I think there is a bit of they do organize. Over the years, we have heard that they organize in some way, shape, or form, so they're never on the same corners. There is, I mean, I wouldn't say they have meetings like this to organize, but there is an organizational to it. And the majority of those panhandlers on those particular corners are like they're homeless types that are looking for meals and that kind of thing. It's almost like a job to them. But Sal and Tim Geisel have been doing a great job organizing this other opportunity, because most people want to do good things, and that's when and if they can put the money towards that instead of giving it on the corner, we can get them off that corner.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you as always, Officer Singh. Just gotta unmute yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Singh. I'm assigned to the community service unit, more specifically the South End area. In my area of responsibility, I've noticed an uptick in overdose near the City Mission area, Madison, South Pearl, Morton, South Pearl. In that neighborhood, there's been an uptick on overdose in that area. Also, too, there's been several larcenies along the Delaware Avenue South End area. And basically what people are doing is that they're checking car doors. If your car door is unlocked, they'll go into it and see what they could get. If the door is locked, 99% of the time, they move on to the next car. So we're strongly advising everyone, lock your doors, even if it's in your driveway, or even if you have nothing you think of doesn't have value, make sure you lock your car doors. Let's see here. There's been just like what Sal was saying, that there's been like a lot of larcenies off of people's front porch, with their packages being stolen. Right now, there's like a lot of like stores where you could go to and have your packages sent to the local store and you could go pick it up there. So I'm advising people to do that. In reference to the panhandlers in the South End area, there's a couple of guys that seem to be a little bit more aggressive than normal. And like what Dan and Sal said, please do not give them any money. Don't give them food. Donate to the organization and not to that specific person. I personally have watched people get money and they walk up to Madison and Grand and they purchase alcohol. I don't see them buying food. I see them purchasing alcohol. So please do not give to them. There's been several burg where people are breaking into sheds and houses. They're ringing a doorbell, and if no one came to the door, they would make their way in. So what I would advise people to do is also see if they could get a camera installed, some type of like Ring device or one of those cameras where it would give you an alert. So you could be notified right away that someone's on your front porch, or even if you could put up a sign that's saying that, they have a camera. I've seen that helped a lot. Besides that, everything else is good. Any questions?
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
I
Dan,
have a
one more?
question.
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if the officers, just listening to you, we have a rise in burglaries, vehicle larcenies, stealing off of porches, that sort of thing. And then I hear there's this rise in overdoses. Could there be a connection here? I mean, is there suddenly somebody set up a big drug selling operation at some point, probably in the South End or possibly across town?
I don't see that.
That's what's causing it.
I don't see that at all. I see the same guy that's begging or panhandling, going to go buy some alcohol, buying some drug, overdosing, urinating in the corner, and so on. I don't see a bigger picture than that, in reference to what you were talking about.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, officers from the Albany Police Department. We really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your information with us. Thank you. All right. So we're going to switch gears over to University of Albany, my alma mater. And we're going to let Jordan Carlo Evangelist. And we also have Luke Rumsey, I think I saw. Hi, Luke. So Jordan, whenever you're ready, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Zach, is it okay if I share my screen?
Adjust something here. I think you're okay now.
All right. All right. Can you all see that okay?
There we go. Yeah.
All right. So first of all, thank you, Zach and CANA, for inviting me. I'm Jordan Carlio Evangelist. I work in the Office of Government and Community Relations at the University of Albany. I want to apologize for the atrocious lighting in my office. I don't usually Zoom here at night rather, so I didn't take that into account. So obviously when Zach asked me to speak to CANA probably like 3-4 months ago, I was like, oh yeah, sure, first week in September. I'll come in, I'll talk about E-TEC, which is our new building, and that is what I'm going to talk about. But I just want to acknowledge, I realize there may be questions about other things. I'm happy to talk about anything you all have questions about. COVID, vaccination, off-campus conduct. As Zach noted, my colleague Luke Rumsey is here. Luke is our Assistant Dean of Students for Off-Campus Student Services. He is really in the thick of it in terms of on the ground in Midtown, Pine Hills, Beverwyck, and he really is up to the minute on what's going on down there, how we're working with the city. So anyway, happy to talk about anything you'd like to talk about. First, I'm going to talk very quickly about E-TEC, which is our newest building on campus. And when I say on campus, it's actually on the southwest corner of the Harriman campus, which is new for us. Most people think of UAlbany's Uptown campus as everything inside the ring road. And that's what it was until a few years ago when, through an agreement with the state of New York, we were able to acquire these 12 acres or so in the southwest corner of the Harriman near our existing Uptown campus to build our new E-TEC building. So when I talk about E-TEC, if you've never seen it, this is why. It's tucked away a little bit off the main road, but you can see it from Washington Avenue. Can't really see it from Western unless perhaps you're standing at the end of Clarendon or Tudor, but it's there and it's pretty impressive and it just opened. So that's why I just want to talk to you a little bit about it. So what is it? Well, it costs $180 million. And what do we get for it? It's all new state-of-the-art teaching, research, and entrepreneurship space. And I'll talk in a minute a little bit about what all that means and why those three things together matter. For some scale, it's our second largest academic building uptown. So the largest is our main library. E-TEC is about 246,000 square feet. Our academic library, I think, maybe about 280. But it's a very, very large building, and we're sort of packing it with really, really cool stuff. This was our signature project under SUNY 2020, which is funny to me now as we sit here in 2021. As we planned E-TEC and then applied for the money and had our plans approved by the state, 2020 seems so far off in the distance. But each of the university centers, Buffalo, Stony Brook, Binghamton, and UAlbany, had sort of a signature 2020 project, and this was ours. And the whole E-TEC is not just nice new lab and office and teaching space, although it is that. It's beautiful. The building is less about the physical structure than the notion of what we built it to do, which was how can we build a teaching space, a research space, a business space that would promote the kind of collaboration that increasingly we see is necessary in academia and government. And it's kind of interesting, this whole experience we've had with COVID, we couldn't have anticipated this when we planned E-TEC and started drawing it up, both the idea and the actual physical space. But it's really reinforced a lot of the ideas that went into it, which is that it's really imperative to have very close partnerships between university researchers, government policymakers, and government implementers, the on-the-ground agencies that are doing it. We saw that over the pandemic with our School of Public Health and New York State Department of Health and the Wadsworth Labs, which have had a partnership for 6 years now. And really that's the whole concept behind E-TEC too. We are going to, it's going to house a number of things: our College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity, our Atmospheric Sciences Research Center, our Center of Excellence in Weather and Climate Analytics, the New York State Mesonet, which is the statewide emergency management weather system that we operate on behalf of DISHES, the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, and New York State generally, the National Weather Service Forecasting Office, our Environmental and Sustainable Engineering Department, our Electrical and Computer Engineering, at least for now, and startup and business development space. And so why the southwest corner of E-TEC for that? Because that's where the State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, that's where the New York State Police are. It's in close proximity to not only our Uptown campus, but also where the National Weather Service was. And the idea is that all of these disciplines are interrelated. So we just lived through Tropical Storm Henri. We just saw what happened with Ida down in Louisiana. A key part of emergency preparedness and government preparedness is increasingly weather and climate. And so we said it makes all the sense in the world to have both of our researchers in both of those disciplines in the same place with the National Weather Service. We also put in our environmental engineers there, because when you talk about engineering, engineers are the ones who are building the solutions to the problems identified by the atmospheric and scientific and climate researchers. They're the ones who are physically implementing the policies that the emergency preparedness and public policy people are coming up with. So there's just this logic of having everybody in there together. And we also recognize that if we set aside space for startup companies, we can sort of speed the path from university research lab to a marketable, commercializable enterprise. And we're seeing that happen with some of the companies we've partnered with even before E-TEC, companies like True Weather Solutions, which develop sort of applications and products that leverage weather data to help companies do their jobs to make the economy more weather resilient, because New York has one of the most vulnerable economies to severe weathers in the country. And that was sort of made clear by Tropical Storm Irene. And soon after that, I think a year later, Superstorm Sandy back in 2011 and 2012. So there's sort of a bigger idea behind this than just, glass and metal office space. So just by the numbers real quickly, we started construction in the summer of 2017. That whole first year of construction was just below the groundwork, moving land, moving sand, and digging a giant geothermal well field, which I'll talk about in a second. It's pretty cool. We were substantially complete in July 2021. That's like a term of art if you're in the construction business. It's not totally done. We have audio visual stuff to move in and a few nuts and bolts left to do, but our offices are being occupied. Faculty and staff have started to move in. We won't have students in there this semester. They'll be in starting the spring 2022 semester. Despite COVID, they lost about 6 weeks. They're on time and on budget. It'll accommodate up to 800 students, 200 researchers, faculty, and staff. There's more than 40 lab and support spaces, a drone and robot lab, a decision support theater, which is sort of a mock emergency management center that our students who are studying emergency preparedness can use to simulate the experience of, say, a hurricane coming in. A weather map room for our climate researchers. They study hurricanes, and so I know for a fact they were all in there watching the projections of Ida as it approached the coast, and a weather deck where they can actually physically go outside. I know it sounds simple, and have proper space to make weather observations, launch weather balloons, and all that. And so there are 3,100 and change pieces of steel holding it all together, and there's 49,000 volts, which I just get a kick out of that stat because who knows that, but the State University of Construction, New York Construction Fund knows that. So this is what it looks like if you're facing east. So this is the side that faces to the west, our campus, and east is behind it. You can see the Harriman campus parking lots, Department of Labor, and for all the parents, this is Capital Milestones, the daycare on the campus. And it's beautiful outside. I've spoken about E-TEC in a lot of different neighborhood associations for years, and I always had to show renderings or construction photos that look super messy, but these are not renderings anymore. These were taken all within the last 6 weeks or so as we prepared to move in, and then we did move in. There are two-level atriums. That's a part of actually the energy efficiency of the building, which I'll talk about in a minute. It not only sort of dampens the noise, but you're not heating a 4-story space. And because we're using geothermal to heat the building, we want to be as efficient as possible. Again, this is the main entryway, really beautiful spaces for students to collaborate. This is, I love this photo because it looks like the Chancellor and President Rodriguez are making our CFO walk the plank. But the reason I show this is for 2 reasons. This is the rooftop weather deck where our climate researchers and the National Weather Service, you can see there are benches here, and this is some sort of gantry. They can launch their weather balloons from here. It's sort of a proper safe space to do that. But you can also see the rest of our uptown campus in the background, and you see how close it is. I think there was this notion when we were building this that Harriman felt so far away, and it really isn't. And I'll show that again in a minute. But this is the dead center of campus right here. This is the Carillon, and you can see the 4 quads. So it's really very close. This is another internal. I believe this is an engineering lab. A wet lab for environmental engineering. We haven't yet brought in all the equipment, but we're doing it. And this is the inside weather observation post and the probably the most in-demand conference room on campus. You can see it faces west. That's by design, because as we all lived for the last 3 months, when these severe storms roll in from the Mohawk Valley, these thunderstorms that come in, they come in from this way. And so this is where our weather researchers want to be. There's an outside observation deck just to the left of this that you can't see. And also just to the left of this, pretty cool, is an area where it's a research roof, where they can experiment with different types of green rooftops to figure out how thick, what kinds of medium work best. And so it's actually using the building itself in the research that will be done inside of it. It's pretty cool. Again, just another educational space. I want to mention, so SUNY's overall policy is that all new construction, should strive toward net zero. Now, keep in mind that E-TEC was designed in 2011, 2012, 2013. It's not totally net zero, but it is very, very efficient. It's probably our most efficient building. And we don't have a lot of new construction on campus. Most of what we do is retrofit, buildings that were built in the 1960s. But with this, we had a real opportunity to do something pretty cool. So we expect it'll be LEED Platinum, which is the highest level of LEED certification. There are nearly 200 geothermal wells under the parking lot that will heat and cool the building. Much of its power, although not all of it, will be generated by this 1.5 megawatt solar array that we just put on top of the podium roof on the next door uptown campus. Podium roof is much bigger. We could put more solar panels on there. I think it's more than 4,000 in total. That happened this summer, sort of concurrent with the completion of E-TEC, and that power will offset the power usage in E-TEC. The non-lab functions of the building are net zero. Labs are extremely energy intensive, as you can imagine. And so that's why the building itself is not net zero. It'll reduce our annual energy cost by 70%, which is nice. I'm not the CFO. I don't worry so much about the money, but that's a lot less carbon being consumed for a very big building. And so we're really happy about that. And as I mentioned, there's a section of green roof for research. And so the other big question we get a lot is like, well, how do I get to E-TEC? And this is how. We don't want you to drive. We built, concurrent with this project, a new shared use path that really for the first time properly connects the Harriman campus to our campus. So this was taken obviously before everything greened out. It looks much prettier now. And it's really a great little connection. It's my son has scooted on it. He approves. It's very smooth. And so we also built a road connection between the Harriman campus and the U Albany campus for the first time ever. But it's not open to private vehicles. That's by design. We don't want people driving back and forth. It'll be open to CDTA buses, to campus shuttles, to maintenance vehicles, and obviously emergency vehicles. But we don't want people driving back and forth. And so this new shared use path was part of the project, and it's pretty great. And if you use our campus to run, jog, ride your bike, whatever, this is sort of an added amenity that we're pretty happy about. And so, Zach, how am I doing on time?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Can I show a 2-minute video?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So this is actually, my colleagues did this on move-in day when our faculty started to move in, and it really sort of illustrates better than I've said.
It's great. All the boxes came, just setting up offices, hanging things, getting our grad students set up in their spaces.
It was a little bittersweet leaving the Earth Science building, but coming here is a really great opportunity. It's really exciting.
This is a space for collaboration. It's a space for research. It's a space for work with students. It's really going to meet a lot of needs, and we're really excited to get to work.
Really excited to be able for the first time to bring industry partners elbow to elbow with our faculty and our students to really provide an opportunity to expand the educational experience for our students and faculty.
Having a state-of-the-art facility where we can show students the science on a sphere, we can take them up to the map room, we can take them up to the observatory. Having that is going to be an instant draw for recruitment and for prospective students.
This is going to be LEED certified. So the LEED certification truly speaks to our commitment to sustainability, and also it highlights the importance of the environmental and sustainable engineering department.
Well, one of the big things for undergraduates is that we really have a nice facility for a design lab course. The ECE program has labs all the way through. Typically, each semester, a student will have at least one lab. And so now they've been really a nice place to do that.
It's so exciting being in a new building. It's nice to have all of our colleagues in one space. And then we have not just the labs, but we also have that decision theater, which is going to be like our mock emergency operations center. I think the space is going to be amazing.
With so many different disciplines represented across the university, there's a great opportunity for collaboration. I think collaboration is really key when you're looking at research that pushes the boundaries. The interdisciplinary element, I think, is one of the exciting frontiers. So that's something we're really excited to be doing here in the building.
Well, that's all I have. The one thing I did forget to mention, and I don't want to forget, is if you do use the Harriman campus, there are now, and you've probably noticed this, 2 traffic lights on each ring. So traffic will be stopped by those lights on those rings because there will be utility vehicles crossing, students crossing, faculty crossing. We want people to bike. We want people to walk. We built infrastructure with CDTA and with OGS to make it safer for them to do so. But please just be aware of that. If you do drive on the campus, it is a change for all of us, including myself. And so just be alert and please be careful. Happy to take questions about E-TEC, about anything else. Zach, I'll let you be the.
Yep, Hillary Papino, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was a really fabulous presentation. The collaborative approach that you're taking is great. If you do ever come across opportunities to partner with neighborhood associations, we would welcome that. In my neighborhood, the Helderberg Neighborhood Association has a lot of flooding, like many of our neighborhoods. There is resistance to bioswales, one of the mitigation efforts. So any opportunities for data collection, research, or other partnership, I think would serve also to educate our neighbors. So please keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's go to Pastor Quinn.
Hi. I love how efficient that the way you described the building, its efficiency and it's almost costs nothing to run itself. And I really appreciate the walking path that leads to it. That's great. And it's some of the things that I'm hoping for our own elementary school here that we run to incorporate. We're thinking also solar panels, and we're thinking, how can we get this building to just pay for itself? But I do have a question though. One of the things you mentioned multiple times during the presentation was that it was beautiful, but it's kind of black and white and glass and plaster. Could you explain to me your philosophy of beauty and why you think it's it looks clean, certainly, but not, I don't know. It doesn't look very spectacular.
I see Dan laughing on mute, and I appreciate that. So I have internalized our faculty members' definition of beauty, which is sort of an internal new labs and classrooms. So you're right. I mean, I wasn't actually passing judgment on the external architecture of the building, although I do kind of think it's cool. And I encourage you all to go. We do plan a proper sort of open house to invite the public into it. We're hoping we can do it at a time when we can actually do it in person. And the actual colors and the textures of the building, when you're up close to it, are actually pretty neat and kind of interesting materials. I would say that it is not out of place on the Harriman office campus. I think it's one of the nicer looking buildings on Harriman right now. But yeah, when I say beautiful, I'm speaking labs, classrooms, spaces that our students and faculty can use. Although I will say that I do enjoy the exterior look too, but that's more subjective.
Okay, we're going to go to Maury McNulty and Melrose. Then we're going to go to Deb Rosenzamer and Buckingham Lake.
Okay, so first of all, thank you. That is just absolutely amazing and so encouraging that it's such a climate forward. Just the whole vision is just fantastic. So thank you. I'm like, best news I've heard all week. And then my second thing is, I know we're in the middle of COVID, but post-COVID, I would love to find ways to, I work in a middle school, high school, and I would just love to find ways to, maybe help our kids explore some careers in that area. I don't want to take up people's time now, but I'm just wondering if is there a contact person? Would I reach out to you or?
Yeah, you can actually, by all means, email me. We have, so the New York State Mesonet, which is the weather network that's in there, they work with K-12 teaching faculty to develop ways to use the mesonet in the classroom and talk about, I mean, it's useful to learn about weather, but it also sort of opens up the notion of sort of weather as a career. And it's not just weather, it's climate. That's the thing about all the things that we do in E-TEC, and this is true even more broadly than that, is that all of these things are related. So you can be focused on severe weather, which is what the mesonet does. And that's about emergency management. That's about making sure, the utilities are prepared and that the thruway authority is prepared. But it's also about documenting our changing climate. And that's bigger picture, longer term. And so there are pathways from that into environmental engineering, into electrical and computer engineering, into careers in renewable energy. So our electrical engineers, one of the things they do is renewable power systems and renewable power grids. So yes, the short answer is please send me an email. I can connect you with the right people.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm gonna go over to Deb.
That was pretty much the same question I had. Thanks, Maura. Just how can we get the Albany City schools involved? How can we get our Albany High, specifically kids, into internship programs? So I'll be reaching out to you, Jordan. Thanks.
One of the things we did actually, and this is credit to Jonathan Jones, the Commissioner of Youth and Workforce Services, also an alum and an accomplished Great Dane athlete. We didn't do it last summer for obvious reasons, but for this summer and previous summers, we brought the summer youth employment, they're not really kids, they're almost adults, into the downtown campus to every Friday to do enrichment. And so their work hours for that program on Fridays were actually paid to be with us. And we had to do a reduced program this year because of capacity limits, but we focused actually on programs that are housed in E-TEC. So A, because they're new, and B, because they're cool. So they heard from the faculty member who oversees our drone lab and our esports and our gaming development programs. And they also heard from the quality assurance manager and outreach coordinator for the mesonet about, so yeah, we're
awesome. SIAP, the Friday enrichment program this is like a perfect fit, perfect opportunity.
So hopefully next summer we can do more.
Great.
Okay, before we move on to, Ed, you have a question? Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, just a question about, very interested in the things you're doing with the pathways, multi-use paths, and making use of buses and stuff to mass transit to get people to that. And I'm wondering, is this part of a bigger picture at SUNY, with the purple path and the new purple bus line that they're putting in to maybe get a better control, control over how many cars are going on to campus versus, people using bikes or pedestrians or buses? Is there a bigger picture here?
So, yeah, and I of course I took the slide out of my presentation, but I have one that shows how the purple line, the new BRT route that CDTA is building, will pass right through. It'll go onto Harriman, stop at E-TEC, and then it will have the ability to use the new access road to go right to our uptown campus. It goes through the center to Fuller. So yeah, E-TEC was developed with knowing that the BRT was in the queue. We didn't talk about this, but the redeveloping the old Albany High School in Midtown at Lake and Western and Washington to be our new engineering college. And CTA has actually already completed the BRT upgrades at that stop. Again, knowing that all of these projects are sort of being developed together, knowing that they're all happening concurrently. So we're working closely with CDTA on that. So about 10% of all rides on CDTA in a non-COVID year come from UAlbany faculty, staff, and students. And one of the things that was awesome to see, and there weren't many awesome things last year, was the CDTA bikes, the CDPHP cycle program. Our usage was through the roof. We just started a universal access program for students, so they get free access to the bikes. And I was looking at the numbers coming in from our parking and mass transit services who oversee our relationship with CDTA, and you could see it. Like I live off Western Avenue, and you would see the kids riding, and not kids, but you'd see the students riding up and down Western all the time. And so, yeah, that is something we're focusing on, and we look at it, as we've done the redevelopment of the old Albany High School, and that work will start in a few months. We didn't just do a parking study, we did a whole transit demand study, because although we looked at parking as a component of it, the bigger picture is to shift more of the transit load to non-vehicle traffic, or at least non-single occupancy vehicle traffic. So we're working on it. And, COVID was a weird year, so it's hard to measure progress because density was down on campus, but that is the bigger picture.
Yeah. Are you working with the city at all to improve like cycling access and safety bike lanes and stuff to get people in and out of the campuses?
Yeah, so that's something we've had conversations with the planning department on, sort of in general, but also in relation to specific projects, because when big things get developed around us, those can be opportunities to add infrastructure. So yeah, we have had conversations with the city about that, and certainly when we did the transit study for the downtown campus improvements, one of the things they looked at is the viability of bike lanes on Washington, and sort of various different configurations you could do there. It's immensely complicated because Washington, as Zach and everybody know, becomes a very different road the further you progress uptown. So it's complicated, but yeah, those are things we are looking at.
Okay. All right. So I know, Luke, did you want to say something before we head on?
I was just here to catch the show. I wanted to see Jordan's presentation and say hi to everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I recognize a lot of faces, but my name is Luke Rumsey. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students at the University of Albany. And as Jordan mentioned, I work with him in regards to our off-campus student services unit. Feel free at any point in time, if you ever have questions or concerns, you can always reach out to us. Zach, I know that you probably have this information on hand, but for those of you that don't know, the university does have an off-campus hotline. It's not monitored after hours, but it does go directly to me. And I would be happy to get back to anybody for those individuals that want to leave a voicemail, if it's over the weekend, really about anything. It could be a concern involving a specific residence or litter and trash, or if it involves students, we want to hear about it. And that number is area code 518-442-5888. Again, the number 518-442-5888. And I'll leave that information with Zach, and so that he can push it back out in case anybody forgets. But if you at any point in time, if you guys need us, feel free to reach out.
All right,
Zach,
thanks.
Zach, I will just say, everybody was polite and didn't ask, but I feel obligated to say, because everybody saw the news, like nobody is fine with what happened last weekend. It is just not acceptable. And it's also extremely unsafe for our students and for everybody who was on the streets in Midtown, participating in that. They put themselves in dangerous situations aside from disturbing the neighborhood. And so we're working really closely with the city on that, and especially APD. I don't know if the officers are still on, but Luke works very closely with them, and we're working on a number of different things to stop that from happening again. But I just feel like, and if anybody has questions or wants to know more, email me, call Luke, email Luke, and happy to talk about it.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Luke, very much. All right, we're going to move on now to David Hochfelder, an encore visit to CANA. David, how are you tonight? Thank you for coming back. We had a little technical difficulties last time, so we're ready to roll. We're ready to have you. Thank you for coming back.
Great, thanks. Sorry we're not doing this in person, but that's the way it goes. Let's share my screen. If at any point anyone has questions, just feel free to let me know. Or unless, Zach, you want people to hold off till the end.
Yeah, let's go through, and if anybody has questions, we'll hold them till the end. That's a good idea.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I still had May 5th on the slide, so anyway, thanks for giving me the opportunity to present about our work. We're doing a history of urban renewal around the state of New York, but we really started here in Albany with the Empire State Plaza. So I'm going to concentrate on that tonight. This is what the area looked like in 1962 before demolitions started. So here you see, if you can see my mouse, this basically is where the arterial is. And then this area in here between the cathedral and the New York Telephone Company building is where the Empire State Plaza main part, the plaza itself is. On the morning of March 27th, 1962, Albanians woke up to this headline in the Times-Union: "State buys 40 blocks in heart of Albany." People knew something was going to be happening. Governor Rockefeller wanted to build a state capitol complex somewhere, and people kind of instinctively knew it would have been between the governor's mansion and the state capitol. The origin legend is that when Princess Beatrix of the Netherlands visited in 1959 to commemorate the 350th anniversary of Henry Hudson's voyage, Governor Rockefeller was ashamed at the shabbiness of the city as he drove her from the riverfront up to the state capitol. We don't know if that's true. Rockefeller did say years later that that was one of the reasons, but the extent to which Princess Beatrix's visit sparked this, we simply don't know. What we do know is that Rockefeller really wanted to build a state capitol. And so people in the area knew for about a year that something was bound to happen. There were a couple public hearings in the summer and fall of 1961, so this was already in the wind. But the specifics of the plan didn't come out until the state announced the seizure on March 27th, 1962. Even though the state announced this at that time, it was about a year later, the spring of 1963, when people had gotten any sense whatsoever of what would replace the neighborhood after it was demolished. And here you see the unveiling of the model. This is from April 1963 in the state capitol. Nelson Rockefeller is in the middle. Befuddled Erastus Corning is on his right, or our left. And then Lieutenant Governor Malcolm Wilson is on Rocky's left and our right. And Malcolm Wilson was tasked with carrying out the overall, the entire project, overseeing the project. In 1965 and 1966, this is what the area looked like. It was cleared except for a few buildings used as office space. You see a lot of parking for demolition crews and construction workers. In the background on the left here is Executive House, which was built just before all the demolitions started. This area remained vacant for quite a while, a couple of years, and people speculated on if the area remains vacant pending a financing plan, maybe this would be a good area for teenage rumbles because there aren't any windows to break and there's plenty of bricks. Maybe an experimental okra farm, maybe a downhill skiing course, so people solicited a lot of kind of joke ideas about what to do with this empty space. And then, of course, this is what it looks like after all was said and done and it was built. A couple features to point out here. The Cultural Education Center, this building wasn't in the original plan. If I can go back a couple slides, this was an Arch of Freedom that was going to go where the State Library and Archives and Museum are today. And it was to hold a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation, and a library building and an archives building were to flank this arch. And the story has it that once the librarians and archivists realized how small their space would be, they insisted they needed more space, so the original plan got scrapped. The egg, we all know the egg, and it got its name because in the official documents, no one knew what to call it. So everyone just called it the egg-shaped building, and the name sort of stuck. It was a derisive term at first, but it's a term of pride, I suppose, now. So that's sort of the political history behind how the South Mall got built. I want to turn more to the social history. And this is a map done by the Council of Community Services, which is now the New York Council of Nonprofits, showing the census tracts and comparing the 1950 and 1960 censuses. And in the area where the arterial and the South Mall would be, those areas lost significant amounts of population during the 1950s. Other areas of the city, the outlying areas, gained in population. So Albany was experiencing what most other Northeastern and Midwestern cities were experiencing, flight from the central city core and into the outlying neighborhoods and suburbs. So this area was depopulated during the decade of the 1950s by around 20% overall. At the same time, Albany was a destination during the Second Great Migration after World War II. So the area where the South Mall would be, especially the arterial section, was becoming, white people were moving out and African-American people from the South were moving in. And the Churches of God in Christ, there were 2 or 3 Kojic churches in Albany, were instrumental in bringing Southern migrants from the South to Albany. And the Rap Road community near Crossgates is part of that stream of migrants. So at the same time that Albany, sections of Albany are losing population, the newer migrants to those sections are African Americans from the South. So the area is becoming blacker and poorer, and housing conditions, I'll talk about that in a second, were also on the decline. This is a redlining map from the 1930s, and the reason I show it, even though we're talking about a development in the 1960s, is the area where the South Mall was going to go in is either listed here crosshatched as a business district, or the area just north of Lincoln Park or surrounding Lincoln Park is redlined, which means that banks were not loaning money into those red neighborhoods. So this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Banks would say, oh, this is a risky area to loan into. The buildings aren't being maintained, and that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When an area is starved of capital, it's obviously not going to be maintained as neatly as, you know, some of these green neighborhoods in Pine Hills and Buckingham Lake. This crosshatched area where the Empire State Plaza is now, the reason it was classified as a business area was because of the rooming houses, bars and grills, shoe repair shops, etc. Especially Hudson had a ton of bars and grills, and Jay and Lancaster streets were Albany's rooming house streets. About 100 different rooming houses were on those streets out of about 120 total in the city at the time. So in 1960 census, there was a block level census done for Albany, as there are for all major cities. And you get a sense of the condition of the housing stock through the census, through the block level census data. And I'm not going to go through this in any great detail, but let's say block 8, 28 housing units, sound with all plumbing facilities, 15, 13 lacking plumbing facilities, 1 deteriorating. So it's in a fairly decent shape. Owner occupied, however, 1 out of 29 dwelling units were owner occupied. A better measure of this would be how many buildings were owner occupied, not how many apartments were owner occupied. But even so, we know that home ownership rates in the area where the South Mall would be was much lower than for the rest of the city. Again, the area had a higher percentage of non-white households, lower percentage of owner-occupied housing units, higher percentage of substandard housing, and a higher percentage of vacant housing units. So measured against the rest of the city, this wasn't a great area. That said, it was a community, and there's no disputing that. People were surveyed in 1962 about what they valued about the community, and a lot of the residents who responded said, you know, the streets are not maintained, the sidewalks are not maintained, our quarters are cramped, but we like living near friends, church, the school, our jobs, and shopping. So people form communities irrespective of the material conditions of their actual apartments or houses. Now, we really started this research when we found a set of photographs in the state archives. Matter of fact, this is the very first photograph we found. It was a negative, and just viewing it, we knew something was going on here. So we took it and viewed it on a light table, and then took a scan of it and turned it into a positive or a regular photograph image. And we know a little bit about these people. This is Robert and Ethel Mather in their apartment at 158 Hudson. We don't know much more about them, but this photograph really gives a great window into how people lived in this area and in that period. The apartment is a little messy. I mean, you know, they weren't expecting a state photographer to come by that morning, but reveals, it looks like a home. It's decorated. Photo is a little cut off, but there are two dogs on the floor here at the bottom. So you get a sense of how people lived through photos like this. And there's several hundred of these that of business owners and apartment dwellers and homeowners in their businesses and places of residence. And it's really revealing to see what those photographs convey about people's lives. Here's another photograph we found early on. This is a resident of a rooming house. Now, rooming houses were furnished rooms, and this was 36 J Street. We don't know anything about this man because the rooming house residents were not listed in the city directory. The state didn't count them when they surveyed who lived there. They only counted tenants with a lease or property owners who lived, owner occupiers. So we don't know anything about this man, just what the photograph tells us. His room is Spartan. There's a bed, a table, a sink, a couple pairs of shoes, a cup of coffee or tea. He probably shared a bathroom with other residents on the floor. He probably either shared a kitchen or didn't have kitchen privileges and took his meals on Hudson in the bars and grills located on Hudson. But that's all we really know about this man. 1,000 of the 7,000 residents of the area were residents of rooming houses like this. Some were state workers who wanted a place to live during the week during the legislative session and then returned home on the weekends. Others made their homes like this man as a long-term proposition in rooms like this. This is a photograph of Jimmy Strawn, who was a musician, and he played around the Albany area from the 1940s onward. He was also an off-the-books barber, and this is his apartment at 29 Grand Street, second floor. I really like the way he is gazing at the photographer here. He's not at all bashful. He has to let the guy in, but he's going to stare him down. And I think it's a remarkable portrait of an individual and his living conditions and the sort of emotions that he must have felt when he was informed that he would be losing his home. Now, we're not just interviewing former residents or finding out information on former residents. We're also interested in construction workers because this was a ladder to the middle class for a lot of workers. The Empire State Plaza started in 1962 with the demolitions. The final construction touches weren't finished until the bicentennial in 1976. So the South Mall provided stable employment for construction workers for about a good decade. And we interviewed a guy in the flannel shirt on the left-hand side. His wife actually reached out to us and told us a story about how when he was working on the Cultural Education Center. Now, I'm afraid of heights. There's no way I would go up and take a photograph like this. Jerry Duleski, the man on the left, had the chance to work overtime. And he couldn't get down from here to find a payphone to call his wife and let her know that he'd be late. So she was worried and she called the company he worked for on site, and they told her, oh, he's working overtime. So she told us this story because it not only represented an opportunity for them to get into the middle class, but the uncertainties of working in the construction trades. It's a dangerous occupation. And if you had no way to call home and let your family know that you were going to be working overtime, your family would obviously and understandably be concerned about you. If you want to learn more about the project, I will post the link to our WordPress blog in the chat. We also have a Twitter presence and a Facebook presence. And if you just simply Google 98 acres in Albany, you will get to our online presences. So I'm going to stop presenting, stop sharing screen rather. And am I still sharing screen?
Nope, you're all set. You're all set,
right.
David. Well, I just want to say that those photographs were just so impactful. And, we're in the business of communities and community development, well-being, and that's just, it's a lot to take in. Does anybody have any questions for for David Hockfelder.
I'm sorry. I think I missed the explanation. Did they actually go into every residence and take those pictures and like make a little sign to say this is the location? And
That's a good question. The short answer is no. We have appraisal photographs, exterior photographs, and these are common with every urban renewal project we're studying around the state. The exterior photographs exist for every one of the buildings. The interior photographs exist for about a quarter of the buildings. When the owners challenged the state's appraisal of the value of their property, this kicked off a court of claims process, and then the state went back out with 2 photographers and documented thoroughly the interiors of the buildings. Other urban renewal projects did not do that because there were federal reporting requirements. This is a different urban renewal project than a federal 1949 Housing Act funded project, where the Department of Housing and Urban Development would simply just sign off on an appraisal that a local agency did. In the case of the state of New York, since the state was exercising eminent domain, any challenges to the state's appraisal had to go to the Court of Claims, and the state went in and thoroughly documented everything.
so essentially they got permission from the owner of the building to go in and take all these photographs, and whoever was living there had to just go along with it.
Well, as of March 27th, 1962, the owner was the state of New York.
Oh, okay.
The state declared eminent domain, obviously paying fair compensation to the owners and providing relocation assistance and moving expenses to residents and business owners. But yeah, the state at that point owned the buildings.
Well, I mean, I'm glad they were taken, but it just seems remarkable that people were just in these apartments with, these signs to say this is where this apartment is located and with all their stuff. And I don't know, it's remarkable.
I'm going to post another link while I'm thinking of it. We found photographs, and this will give you a sampling of the photographs that we're finding with other urban renewal projects. It's our Flickr feed. And I think you'll all enjoy the top left, the Albany Institute images with Rocky giving the finger. It's a mashup of the South Mall and a campaign stop in, I believe, 1976. When people heckled Rocky, he basically flipped them the bird. So the caption of that poster reads, "Vote Republican." So it gives you a sort of sense of the resentment some people felt toward Rocky.
Anybody else have any questions for David?
Out of curiosity, are you looking at any of the other urban renewal projects in Albany? I was looking a couple of weeks ago at North Albany, all the changes they did like along like Manning and the public housing that they put in up there. And I noticed like there was a big change, like I forget what year it was, like 66, I think they had like a article in the paper, the big picture of what it was going to look like. And then 2 years later, they had another rendition of the project that was like 50% different. And just out of curiosity, how those things changed and whether or not you were looking at any other of those projects in Albany.
Yes, and those records are at the Albany County Hall of Records. They morphed into the community development block grant program in the mid-70s. So like the Pastors Rehab Project was community development money, but it's still urban renewal. One of the remarkable things about the Albany records, and this is for the Pastors Project in particular, as federal urban renewal took place from 1949 to 1974. Throughout the life of the federal program, and this is not the South Mall, but this is for like the Pastors or North Albany, the projects that you had mentioned. As time goes on, there's a lot more resistance and unhappiness with urban renewal. So the relocation process gets better. Early, it was just like, we'll pay your moving expenses, get out. By the 1970s, there's social workers working for urban renewal agencies. And in the case of Albany, the residential relocation files contain contact sheets when social workers went out to visit residents who were going to be displaced. And some of those files are really heartrending. One of the files, there's a grandfather raising his 10-year-old grandson because the parents are dead. And, just the difficulty in getting that family relocated from Madison to out of Yarborough, and just the health difficulties the grandfather is experiencing, the anguish at the loss of a home in a community. So a lot of these files, the social work contact sheets, are really, really moving documents, and I'm not sure what to do with them because they're very personal. Obviously, if we use them in our research, we'll have to anonymize them because these are such personal, heartrending documents. We're looking at urban renewal in all over the state, but we're concentrating also on Kingston, Newburgh, and Stuyvesant Town in Lower Manhattan. And we're finding the same photographs, the same documentation about residential relocation. The federal government spent $13 billion in that 25-year period on urban renewal. About 100 communities in the state of New York had projects, federally funded projects. Albany is unique in that most of the urban renewal here was because of the state government, and something got built on the site. If you go to Newburgh today, you'll see a 100-acre site that is not going to ever be built on, that used to be Newburgh's downtown. So at least in the case of Albany, love the South Mall or hate it, at least there's something on the site, whereas a lot of other federally funded urban renewal projects didn't get anything built on the land. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Holly Katz, go ahead.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Holly.
Question for you about those people who did contest the value that and had to go to the Court of Claims. Were there any successful where they got more money than the state had decided on?
Yeah, and a lot of that success depended on how good your lawyer was, not surprisingly. Generally speaking, if you took the state to court, you did better than people who didn't, because there was a huge backlog of these cases. There was an issue in 63 and 64 where, there's about 200 to 300 of these cases, and the Court of Claims just didn't have the capacity to deal with that many claims, especially while the interstate highway system is being expanded. So there are a lot of challenges to state acquisition prices at the time. So the state had every incentive to just settle as quickly as possible.
All right. All right, well, David, thank you very much again for sharing your knowledge base. And I just want to note that Harold Rubin was the first CANA chair, and he actually has a set of archives at University of Albany and at Albany Institute. I don't know if you've combed through them. I've combed through some of them,
oh, yeah.
And there is some information there.
Yeah, we've gone through the Center Square Neighborhood Association records and Harold Rubin's papers. Yep. But thank you.
Great.
Always on the lookout for more information. If anyone has a family connection, either as a displaced resident or a construction worker or anyone associated at all with the Empire State Plaza, I'll type in. I know I typed in my personal email earlier, but here's my official Albany email address. So I'd appreciate hearing from anyone who has knowledge.
Thanks. Great, thanks, David. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, we're gonna thank you. We're gonna move over to a good friend of mine, Eva Bass. She is the community outreach coordinator for the city of Albany. Eva, you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing, Zach?
Thanks for coming. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a while.
No problem. I've been enjoying the information, and hopefully I can plan on joining more often. So I am Eva Bass. I work in the mayor's office. Well, actually, I am the lead in the mayor's office of equity and community engagement, which is a newer office that is growing over the years, that stemmed out of the mayor's equity agenda, which started during her treasury term in 2011. I was hired after Barbara Smith retired. So for the past 4 years, I have been chairing the mayor's equity agenda and working towards access to information. in the city of Albany, which is not an easy task. I don't have I'm like, you guys showed out a little bit with your presentations. However, I do have a map I would love to show. And before I show that, just give you a little back history on what we've been working on at the Mayor's Equity Agenda Working Group, which is comprised of some community members, community leaders, and some service organizations who work towards identifying equitable issues in the city of Albany, focusing on our most disenfranchised neighborhoods, which are West Hill, Arbor Hill, and the South End. And what we have found, and we had in 2019, we created a resource map for the summer so that families can have easy access to information in regards to summer camps and opportunities, food sites, and things of that nature. Sadly, the pandemic happened shortly after, so we are trying to regroup and get people reconnected to the idea of comprising our resources in a place which is easy for our community to find, so that they can not only access programs and initiatives, but also service, community service resources. And so I think I can share my screen. Okay. So can you see my screen? Okay. So this is the City of Albany's 2021. We put summer resource map. We continue to upload it, upgrade it. We're going to a new season. The goal is to get, and I already have popped up because I didn't know if the features were available for screen share. So basically you see this is like a Google map. We use a database, open office database to upload information, not only from city resources, but also service organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, so that families can find this information easily. We are in the process of reaching out and doing outreach to service organizations who have, programming for families, for our youth, food programs, mentorship programs, internships, housing assistance, things of those natures. Basically, what you do is you just go onto the City of Albany website. It is right on, as soon as you pull up the City of Albany website, it is right on I'm gonna see if I can go back, if you see it or not. Can you see the homepage? So right here it says resource map. Soon as you go on the City of Albany website, and you're able to click on there, and it pulls you right into there. This is accessible on cell phones as well, although we are in search of creating a actual application for cell phones that people can download. So everything in blue are city resources. You can see things that are located. We have certain fields so families know if it's free, when it's available, if there's food available, things of that nature, where it's located, and contact information. And some of them have the website so they can seek further information. And so, of course, there's a spreadsheet available for organizations and individuals who want to upload the information for their records. We are looking for, more community partners to help with these endeavors, so that we can be fully prepared for that. I did put the link inside of the chat. However, I will put the link back in the chat so you can be able to store that for your use and share it with your networks. But right now, it is very important for us to connect with our service organizations so that we can really make this map full of resources for our community. So, we really need to work together, and I'm very grateful to share this information with this group here today. On top of that, through the equity agenda, we have different committees where we focus on community violence, and we focus on trauma and grief. So we have a few, besides the resource committee, we have a trauma committee, and we have a violence in the community committee. We were able to host 2 successful youth speak outs through our violence committee, who collaborated with community partners, as well as departments within the city of Albany, Department of Recreation, the police department, and our workforce development department. We were able to really get our youth to speak up on how they're being directly affected by the violence that's happening in our community. And we also gave a platform for our youth to express what violence looks like. I had some youth who expressed, concerns about Asian hate. I had youth that expressed concerns about bullying. I have youth concerns about gun violence, and things of those nature. So, we're really working hard to continue to amplify the voices of the youth in the city of Albany, so that we can properly address their needs and concerns. The trauma, I'm sorry, I'm like speaking over. The trauma committee, we are planning a rotunda event, prayerfully September, the end of September. COVID, it's hard for us to continue our rotundas events that we normally have once a month, sometimes twice a month in the city hall. But we're looking to have these conversations centered around trauma and our service organizations, and how we're connecting our community members to services and if they're falling through the gaps. So, I would love, if you're interested in being a part of that conversation or have an invite, please leave me. I will leave my email inside of the chat as well. Please email me if you are interested to be a part of that as well. And we are also looking for more members to participate in the Equity Agenda Advisory Committee, which right now I meet every Tuesday at 6 p.m. And every other Tuesday is a different committee. So we definitely want more people involved to help us address the inequitable issues in our community, so that we can address and allocate resources appropriately. Does anyone have any questions?
Maura McNulty, Melrose.
Hi, Howard.
Hi there. Thank you so much. That was all such great information. I'm curious about whether, in terms of justice and equity, there's some cross-pollination between you guys and, other committees in Albany that are related to sustainability and all that stuff.
That we do, are you talking about like City of Albany Sustainability Committee?
Yeah.
What the equity agenda does is we have committees come present. Again, COVID-19 kind of stopped some things. So we normally have different committees come present to us as a committee. So, we communicate, we, talk about certain disparities, we talk about boundaries, we talk about things that are moving forward. So we have not been able to meet with all committees as of yet, but we do look forward to meeting with those committees internally. We do work with a lot of community partners who have different committees and groups, like South End Community Collaborative, different community development corporations, definitely Albany, United Way, Albany Public Library, and things of that nature. But again, COVID-19 has, a lot of people have changed guards, left work, things have happened. So we're looking to, bring all of those things back so we can proceed forward.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Most definitely.
All right. Eva, as always, I will be, got one more question before we move on. Hillary Papineau. Go ahead, Hillary.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you so much. This is great info. I was curious, speaking of COVID, has your group, your committee been able to be involved in that, the 80 million, whatever it is, the funding, the committee, the community groups coalescing around the COVID funding, and particularly the role of youth, which I think is particularly important and great that you're doing?
So through our role, so it's the Equity Agenda Advisory Committee. So through our meeting and sharing information, we share information directly to the mayor's office so that they can be able to address those things, through advisement. I am not, nor I don't think anyone on my committee is a part of that group. However, we do communicate, we do share information and data so that we can make sure that we identify the direct needs. And this includes doing surveys and things like that. My everyday activities, working in the mayor's office, is working, with a lot of outreach, getting information so that we can share with our different committees. So we're addressing the needs of the community correctly.
All right. Eva, thank you very much for presenting to CANA. Have a good night. And we have, all right, so next, during new business, we have Andrew Neidhart. He is the president of Walkable Albany. Andrew, whenever you're ready. Are you having issues?
Hey, thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Yes, thanks for joining us.
Sorry, I'm just getting to a quiet spot. I'm in the middle of bedtimes here. So thank you for having me and giving me some time here. I just wanted to provide everybody with a little bit of an update on some things that we've been working on and offer an opportunity for some volunteer participation. Walkable Albany, for those who don't know, has been around for a few years now. We focus on improving pedestrian safety in the city of Albany and also supporting walkable development and walkable communities. So we've been working on a variety of things this summer, keeping busy, starting off with being involved in the elections and doing a questionnaire. We've been involved in the Washington Park traffic study that's been going on. And we recently launched a pedestrian safety committee to try to more specifically work on those issues involving things like crosswalks, sidewalks, things like that. So that just started. We just had the first meeting a couple days ago. So if anybody's interested in participating in that, I'll put my email in the chat. I can let you know how to get connected, or you can find us on Facebook. But we really wanted to be able to focus on specific issues that are going on in different neighborhoods and have more time to have a committee look at those things specifically. The one major thing I wanted to mention for folks, if they would like to help and participate, I know it's only September, but we are thinking about winter. And one of our favorite activities that we do is the Albany Shovel Brigade. So this is a group of volunteers who meet up and shovel sidewalks, and especially corners and bus stops and fire hydrants, things like that. As everybody knows, that's often a problem area in the city, and the city government's taken a few steps toward addressing that, but there's still a lot of corners that are blocked for days after a snowstorm. And if you're someone who normally drives, imagine that being like your street not being plowed for days or sometimes weeks after the snow. If you're in a wheelchair, or if you have a stroller, or if you're elderly, snow at the corner blocking a crosswalk is insurmountable. So we try to get together and go out there with our shovels and take care of that ourselves with some muscle power. So we are looking to expand where we do that. We've been most successful getting people in Center Square, Hudson Park, Washington Park, and Park South neighborhoods, but we'd like to partner with a neighborhood association or two to try to get something more organized in some of the other neighborhoods that may need those services. So if anybody would like to partner up with us, we're looking for that specifically. We tried to do that a little bit on our own last year and didn't get quite as much response as we'd like. So we really would welcome support on that. So I will put my email address in the chat. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask now or send me an email.
That's great. That's great, Andrew, with the shoveling. And certainly I can get the word out to CANA and on Facebook too. That's great. Anybody have any questions for Andrew?
Andrew, this is Esther. I was wondering when you're mentioning specifically, like this is one of my things, so I will definitely be sending you an email. But one thing I'm really irritated about is how many commercial properties in the city of Albany are allowed to go season long without ever clearing their sidewalks. I mean, particularly the area along Central Avenue it's a pedestrian hazard all winter long. All those businesses along Central Avenue, maybe 50% or less actually clear the snow off of the walks. And some of them actually wind up having the snow plowed into the walks from their parking lots. Has there been any discussion about that? Is there any kind of idea of a joint effort to try to get the city to address this better?
Yeah, so I think it was just prior to last snow season that the city had passed a new ordinance that was supposed to toughen up on that. And I don't know that we saw a lot of results, and that may have been due to COVID. But we're certainly planning to reach out to the city about that. But the new ordinance had tightened the timeframes down to 24 hours after the snow finishes falling, that things have to be clear, and allows the city to send in city employees to go and clear it and then send the bill for that time to the property owners. And so I don't know how much that really happened. I didn't really notice a big difference last year compared to the year before. And it's funny, it's actually one of the dilemmas we have with the shovel brigade. It's like, as we're walking along to the next corner, if someone hasn't shoveled, like, do we shovel for them or do we let them get fined so that they, we err on the side of shoveling just so that people can get where they need to go. But sometimes I'm like, maybe if we leave it, they'll finally get a fine from the city. But, we had thought about, proposing the idea of something along the lines of like summer youth program kind of thing where, people could go out and do that shoveling on behalf of the city, and the city could bill for it. And then, that's also sort of providing maybe employment opportunities for young folks. I think there's definitely fertile ground there for more to be done. But the other thing is the city put out an RFP last spring for services for a company who would actually come and do that. I think Central Avenue is one of the areas where they had looked at doing that. So they're trying to hire people because the city says that it's up to property owners, but when it's crosswalks and corners and ADA ramps, that's really on the city. And it's an ADA liability issue for the city. So they're trying to actually contract companies to do that. And the last thing I'll say is the city DGS also is trying to do that. So they have vehicles that they use for park pathways. And I saw last winter, they actually were trucking those little vehicles around and clearing some of the corners. And I think, Central Avenue is, I think, a big one that they want to focus on, especially, given that it borders underserved neighborhoods, so I think that's an important priority for the city.
Well, I hope so. You can't miss the fact that people are walking in the street on Central Avenue because there's no place to walk all winter long. And I used to try to run along there, and I stopped because you really could not find a safe place to go along. You're going right into traffic.
And it's frustrating for drivers as much as for the pedestrians, right? I've been that person walking with a stroller with two kids on it up against traffic in the lane, and people are mad. And I'm just like, there's no option, there's nothing I can do. Sorry, so it's not safe for anybody. It's certainly not happy for anybody. And, for those businesses, they're losing out on customer opportunities too, if they're not shuffling properly. So yeah, it's a huge issue though. It really is. And other cities around the Northeast and in Canada, the city just plows all of the sidewalks. So we're hoping to sort of work toward that, at least in the most heavily pedestrian trafficked parts of the city.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, Dan Van Riper, Lincoln Park, get your hand up.
Hey, Andrew. I just wanted to ask if, just to clarify, is it actually legally the city's responsibility to clear the corners and the crosswalks along with the ramps? It is, you know, because I've always been under the impression that that was the property owner's responsibility.
So it's up to the city to decide that. So the city has set it out that property owners are responsible for clearing their sidewalks, but that's a choice the city has made. It's a much more difficult question, I think, legally at corners and crosswalks, because the city is under an obligation of the American with Disability Act to allow safe passage for people who are not able to walk. And so, you know, just like the city has to install, had to install all of those ramps over the past, 40 years or 30 years since we've had the ADA, the city is responsible for keeping the roadways clear, and that includes crosswalks. And so, I would interpret the most recent RFP as a recognition that the city sees liability there, and that it is not just the property owners when it comes to corners and crosswalks.
Okay, so it's an interpretation of the ADA. Well, one of the problems, of course, that we've had over the years, and I'm sure a lot of neighborhoods have had these problems, is that you go out and clear a corner, and then the city snowplows come and they pile it up. In the past, it was even done deliberately by certain past city leaders, but we won't go there. And then we have to go out and clear it again. And of course, now we only have 12 hours to clear, and then they've just pushed it up like a day or two or more after the snow is plowed. We have a little problem scrambling out there. So, that's an issue.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's actually especially problematic for some of the commercial spaces or the larger apartment buildings, because they pay to have somebody come and clear it, right? But then, maybe 12 or 24 hours after the storm, when the city's widening the street or doing the parking lane or whatever, it gets plowed right back in, and they don't ever send their person back again, because the person they've hired who lives, out in, one of the hill towns or something, doesn't realize that it's now been blocked in again. So they don't even know to come back. They don't know that their sidewalk has been, they said, well, I did clear it. I came and I cleared it. So it's especially a problem for those folks, I think. But that's, I think, what's nice about the city going and bringing their vehicles back after they're done plowing to come through. But there's always going to be some amount of time when it's blocked. And so we have this really hard time scheduling when should we do the shovel brigade? Should we do it after the first shoveling, after the first plow comes through, or should we wait after it gets plowed in again? And so sometimes we've done it, 2 or 3 times for one storm, just because it gets plowed in most quarters get plowed in multiple times.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, Ed Brennan, question, get your hand up.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So Andrew, we had talked about Washington Park a ways back. In addition to Normansville Neighborhood Association, I'm also with the Albany Bicycle Coalition. And it seemed like we were waiting and waiting for that study to happen for Washington Park. And we've been emailing the traffic department. They say, we're working on it. All of a sudden, it's like one day it showed up in the Times-Union that they were having that event in Washington Park and told people to come out. Fortunately, we'd seen it that day, or maybe it was the day before, showed up and made some comments. And at the event, they said, oh, and this was like mid-June, I think, or late June. Yeah. And they said, oh, and all the comments need to be in by August 1st. And I was wondering if anybody else had any more advanced notice of that, because it seemed like it was a real slapdash kind of study that they put together. It was almost like they needed to do something for public comment, so they threw in this one day at the park, and whoever showed up, and that was what their excuse was for public comment. And I had asked if they would be willing to extend the public comment period, because Washington Park is, like, as far as parks are concerned, that's like the crown jewel for Albany, and I think a lot more people, if they had the opportunity, would want to say what they thought about how traffic and pedestrians and cyclists should live together in that park, as well as as other parks like Lincoln Park as well. Anybody else hear anything else about that, or is that all we get?
So I was on an email with some of the neighborhood associations around the park for the initial date of the hearing that or the event that they were planning to have, and it was on the same day that Center Square Association was hosting their stupendous stoop stroll, and so they requested that it be moved to another date. So there was some notice to the neighborhood associations, at least. Apparently it didn't include the Bicycle Coalition, but there was some notice provided via email, at least. I don't know that it was much more widely distributed beyond that, though. I felt like it was fairly well attended at the park, but that's the most I can say in terms of what outreach they did. But we also have a member of Walkable Albany, Jackie Gonzalez, our vice president. She's on the advisory committee, I think they're calling it, for that traffic study. So they have a bunch of the neighborhood associations from around the park are also participating in that, and they've met a couple times. I think they're planning to meet again based on the public comments. So they are including some of the neighborhood associations, at least.
Okay.
All right. Andrew, thank you very much for coming to speak to CANA. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And, very good. And Hillary, now we got Hillary Papineau. She wanted to come and talk to us about the post office issue over on New Scotland Ave. Hillary, so whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thanks so much, Zach. Hillary Papineau here with the Helderberg Neighborhood Association. So I just wanted to touch base quickly, as I'm sure many of you who have used the New Scotland Ave post office know, it's now closed as that location is being redeveloped. So just if you're not aware, in the short term, you can now, if you have a post office box there, or if you need postal services, the Fort Orange post office over on Central is housing postal boxes for those folks. What's less known, and USPS has not really shared a lot of information on this yet. They imagine they will, but they have been putting some effort into 363 Ontario as a sort of an emergency funding. Every 6 months they've been, is my understanding of how that will work. So there will be some temporary postal services at 363 Ontario. They're anticipating that will be up and running by mid-October. So if you do have a post office box and you don't love going over to Central Ave, don't give up, because that will be a closer spot, at least for a temporary basis. And the good news is that the developer, Janko companies, have built in terms of long-term plans, the developer has included space to accommodate the post office in its site plan, and it includes all the logistical needs that the post office would request. The problem, however, is that USPS has made no commitment to reopen the post office at 563 New Scotland, which is very concerning to many of us. And so for probably the past 6 months or so, Helderberg Neighborhood Association has been engaged with many of our local officials at the state, the local and the federal level, who have been absolutely wonderful, liaising, with ourselves. Congressman Taco's office has been the liaison with the USPS directly. So we've been undertaking advocacy efforts with the goal of reopening at 563 New Scotland for several reasons. Quick historical context, as many of you know, there are several other neighborhood post offices that closed over the past recent years. So this current location at 563 New Scotland serves about a third of the city. So it's a pretty significant citywide critical resource. It's a walkable mixed-use neighborhood. It's key to our urban neighborhoods. It's a NORC area, neighborhood of naturally occurring residential communities. So there are vulnerable communities, populations who are dependent on this. So we're really undergoing an advocacy effort to reopen, to get the USPS to commit to keeping that location as the long-term site of the post office. So just wanted to keep everyone aware of this issue and what work is being done around it. So we have several different neighborhood associations who are writing letters of support. The mayor is on board with this, our local council members, and in fact, and I'll put the link in the chat, the city council actually anonymously passed a resolution supporting the advocacy efforts to keep the post office, to get USPS to commit to keeping the post office at that location. CANA is considering it as well. So I just wanted to share those updates. Thank you very much to our partners who are working on letters. If there are other neighborhood associations or other community groups who'd be interested in writing a letter of support, please let me know. I'll put my contact information in the chat as well. And if anybody has any questions, I'll put my email. I'm happy to take any questions now, or just shoot me an email and we'll get back to you. So thanks, Zach, so much.
Sure. Thank you very much, Hillary. And I think it's appropriate for CANA to also support the post office staying there as well, because I think I read it. How many packages is it, Hillary? Do they handle a year? It's like 30.
I think it was something like 40,000, maybe even more. It's a significant number. It's a very active post office.
Right. And the closure will really impact a lot of the seniors that live there that rely on it for postal services. So.
Yep. And over a third of the city. And the other key point is it's right on a bus route. It's publicly accessible via public transit. So that's a really critically important factor as well.
All right. All right. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
Dan's got a question. Dan, go ahead. Just gotta unmute yourself.
Duh. Okay. Maybe CANA can vote to add support to this officially. Maybe we could do that. I don't know. Move to do that? Should we have to discuss it over a couple of meetings? What's the procedure?
I mean, I definitely think a letter of support's appropriate. Yeah. Does anybody have any issues with that? All right. All right, got thumbs up. Thanks, Esther. Very good. All right, is anybody, so I just want to talk about some of the upcoming meetings real quick. Our next CANA meeting is going to be October 6th. We have Betsy Mercoliano. She's one of the co-founders of BirthNet. We have Maria Markovich. She is the co-chair of Housing for All. And we have Akari Fox. She is the founder of Community Matters. It's a local community organization. November 3rd, we're going to do an evening to remember. We're going to welcome some of the retiring Common Council members that are ending their service later this year. And then December 1st, we're going to do a neighborhood association go around. So if any of you neighborhood association leaders would like to participate and talk a little bit about what's going on this year in your neighborhoods, let me know, and you can have the floor for some time. So does anybody else have any thing to add tonight? No? I think we're good. We're good? Okay. All right, folks, have a great night. We'll see you next month, okay?
Bye, Zach. Thank you.
Take care. Stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great meeting.
Everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.